Hey everybody, hope you're doing great today. This is Paul from This Way to the Aquarium, and today's video I'm going to talk about a super easy way to wash your substrate. Whether it be gravel, sand, whatever you have, you want to wash it before you put it in the aquarium. And this is for your first time use. You just brought the gravel, you just bought the sand. A lot of times in the process of packing, in the process of shipping, it gets a lot of dust in there. Especially gravel, it grinds up against each other in the packing boxes, and so that can cause a lot of dust there. And you don't want that dust in your aquarium. It can clog up filters, make your tank look dirty, look messy. So the best bet is to wash that sand or gravel. So one of the common ways that we wash sand or gravel, the ways I've done in the past, and it's not a bad process, but depending on the substrate you're using, whether the sand or gravel might take a lot of flushes, and that's just using a bucket like this over here. Fill your bucket up partially with the gravel, with the sand, pour water in there, sift it around with your hand, sift it around with some sort of tool, get that loose silt, that loose dust in there to kind of float to the top, and then pour that water off. So that's the way that a lot of people do it. So they'll just take this bucket outside, they'll put their gravel in there, they'll put their sand in there and wash it off and rinse it and drain that water off outside. Now when it comes to washing your gravel, washing your sand, you don't want to do it in a sink in your house because that sand can cause some damage to your drains, especially if you've got cast iron drains. Those type of drains are subject to pitting, and especially as sand gets in there, it'll fill in those pits and it can cause clogs and other problems in general. So overall, just don't put sand in your drains. Better to do it outside, just dump that water on the grass or wherever. That way you're not damaging your drains. So what is the easy way that I use to wash my sand, wash my gravel? It's this right here. Basically a pillowcase. So you get a decent pillowcase. You can go buy a new one if you got any old ones sitting around. This is one of my old ones sitting around. So you want to make sure that it's sturdy enough. It doesn't have any holes. Obviously, if you're washing sand, you just want to get rid of that fine powder in there. You don't want to lose sand. So no holes in your pillowcase. Another thing to do is to make sure when you're washing it with this is don't put too much in there, especially depending on how old your pillowcase is, the seams. You put too much sand in there, you put too much gravel in there, you're going to rip the seams, and then it becomes kind of a useless endeavor. So starting off indoors today, because it is a little colder outside, but when I actually show the process, how I'm doing this, how I'm cleaning my sand, we're going to step outside, and then I'll actually show you putting some sand in here, washing it out, then that sand is ready for the aquarium. Now once you've used this for washing sand or washing gravel, do not throw it in your washer inside, because you don't want that sand or any of that silt or whatever other dust you have in there getting in your washer, clogging up the washer motors, making a mess inside your washer. That's a big no-no. For future use, I would say just keep this pillowcase for just washing aquarium gravel, washing aquarium sand. If it's a one-time use, you've only got one tank, then buy a cheap one online from a local store, find a cheap one, see if somebody's given one away on Facebook, and then once you're done, just throw it away. You don't want to wash it, you don't want to reuse it again. If you do need to reuse it again, like in my case, I've got multiple tanks, I'm going to be reusing it multiple times. Just turn it inside out and do the same thing. Just put water in around it, wash off all that dirt, wash off all that silt, and then flip it over again, let it dry out, and it's ready for use for the next time. So with that, let's go step outside, and I will show you how I'm going to wash sand in this pillowcase here. So here's a household tip. As you can see, you've got snow on the steps over here, got some snow in the yard. It snowed recently. Basically, we got below freezing temperatures. So as you can see, I've got my hose disconnected here. So you never want to leave your hose connected to the spigot in the wintertime, especially when you get below freezing temperatures. It should always be removed, because what happens sometimes is the water stays in here, especially when in the hose, it stays in there, and then there's a chance that it'll freeze. And so when it freezes, it can damage the mechanism in here, or it can even just split your garden hose. It can even split the copper over here, because water, when it freezes, it expands, can cause quite a bit of damage. And actually, when we purchased this house, we had an inspection. Didn't even really need a home inspection for that, but you could see right away that the prior homeowner had done that. They had left the hose connected, and so this was continually dripping. Not necessarily a cheap repair, but something you want to be aware of. So that's just a side tip prior to my showing the sand washing here. So I got a bucket here. I've got my sand in a bag already in the bucket. Got the pillowcase. So as I mentioned before, you don't want to overfill the pillowcase where you're going to run the risk of ripping it, making a mess. So I'm going to do the wash in a couple different loads. And then once I do wash one batch, then I'll dump it in the bucket. That way the clean sand is in the bucket, and then I can do another batch right after with that. So I've just got a smaller bag right here. Since it's cold today, I'm not going to be spending too long outside. So let's take a look at the process. It's cold out here. I'm wearing some gloves. Keep the water off my hands. Below freezing, don't need to get any frostbite. To make it easy to pour, wrap it around the bucket there and start pouring in. You can already see a lot of dust kicking up. So that's the kind of stuff you want to get out, is that dust that you see kicking up there. That, turn on the hose. Getting the hose in here, letting it sift through the sand. I can see some of the dirty water coming out. That should be good for now. Let it drain off a little bit here. Now let's dump that sand in here. Take this back inside before it freezes. So when it comes to the sand, you can obviously do more than 1 or 2 rinses that I did. I did mainly 1, and that's primarily just because it was cold outside. But I would recommend doing more than 1. This sand I don't think is too bad of a quality. I think it will be fine. There might be a little bit of cloudiness in there, and I do have a mechanical filter I can put on the back and run just to help clear the cloudiness. Some of it will settle, obviously. If you like this video so far, please hit that like button so others can find that video too. I'm done washing the sand. Basically, I washed a bag of 50-pound sand, as well as 2 20-pound bags of sand. So those bags have been washed. They've been put in the tanks over here. So let's take a look at these tanks over here with the sand in it. So you can see the 20-gallon sand over there. I put cichlid sand, the Carib Sea cichlid sand in there, as well as this 40-gallon breeder over here. Got the Carib Sea cichlid sand. This is the bucket that I was using, letting that pillowcase dry out in there, and there's also a little cup in there I was using to scoop some of the wet sand. So I do have another bag of sand on order, another 50-pound bag of sand. In that case, I'm going to be using pool filter sand because I found a good deal on it. I'm going to be using that to fill this 75-gallon here. It does take a little strength, does take a little effort when you're holding up that pillowcase with the sand filled in it, and that also depends on how much sand you're putting in there. The more sand you put in there, obviously it's going to be heavier. As you start adding the water, it's going to even be more heavy. So that does take some time. In my opinion, though, it's pretty easy to wash. It allows me to flush that sand out pretty quick. So that's what I do to wash my sand, wash my gravel. Use a pillowcase. Keep that pillowcase dedicated just for this purpose. I'm not putting it back on pillows, obviously, and I'm not going to throw it in the washer because I don't want sand in my washer. Meanwhile, take a look at this other video over here that YouTube is suggesting for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.